Hey everybody, welcome back to The Wealthy Sailor. So recently one of my videos became a little bit more popular than I really anticipated because I thought that this would be a channel where maybe one person watched each video, and in some cases it is. But I am growing slowly, and with that people are starting to ask questions, and I figured that I would kind of try to answer them as best I can with the knowledge I have if I feel qualified to answer them. So today's video actually is a question that was sent to me. And basically somebody was asking, what's the best way to start? And it's a very abstract idea. I mean, like, it can seem very intimidating and it could be very difficult to know where to start. So I decided to make a video explaining exactly how I started and where you should start. Note, this does not necessarily mean that I did these steps. This is me knowing everything I know now, what I wish I would have done back when I started. So please understand that I made the same mistakes everybody else makes. We all make mistakes. It's difficult. The idea is to stay with it. Step number one, if you want to get started kind of fixing your financial situation. The first step is actually just knowing what you're fixing. It's coming up with a goal or identifying a problem. If you have a problem financially, like you're living off your credit cards, or you're spending more than you make, or you're worried about how you're going to pay for gas in your car for the next week until payday, those are all problems. But let's say you don't have too many financial problems per se, but you do have financial goals. Well, these are the first things you need to identify. You either don't want to live paycheck to paycheck anymore, or you want to save for retirement, whatever. Identify what your end point is. So for me personally, I want to increase my net worth. Now my end goal for increase my net worth is just to retire. My fiance retires from the Navy in about 9 years, and I don't know what my plan for myself is in that time, but I think I would like the option that if her and I just want to stop working, I would like that available. So to me, I have 9 years to get my financial situation in order enough that I only have to do what I want to do instead of what I have to do to make money. Now, that's not to say I don't like my job. I love my current job. But it's just the way things are. I just want to be flexible and be able to be the best person that I can be with her. So that's kind of my end goal down the road. So for you, yours could be as simple as you want to pay off a credit card that only has $300 in it. But if you don't have a lot of extra income, $300 could take a while to pay off. It just really just depends on what you have in your situation. So come up with a goal, make sure it's realistic, and try to come up with like a time frame for it, because I feel like goals are better if you have like a time, like I want to do this by this certain time, rather than just leaving it open-ended, and you'll probably end up pushing it off for a while. Step number two, audit yourself. Now, I've done these before, and they are a pain, and they can go back anywhere from a month to 2 years. The longest audit I ever did on anybody was somebody in the Navy, and it was 2 years. I pulled his finances, and I went line by line by line. Now, keep in mind, I'm a kind of a spreadsheet nerd, so I don't mind doing that. I actually enjoy doing it. I listen to music and just start typing numbers out. I'm fine. But in his case, I had to go through and I had to identify stuff, and it was really difficult because at the beginning of the auditing process, I found out he took a lot of money out in cash at ATMs and spent in cash. So it was difficult to figure out where he was spending his money. But try to get it done. Audit at least a month or two beforehand, because you need the information from your audit to know what you're spending, what you need, and what future projections are going to be. Also, you can learn certain lessons about yourself by auditing yourself. Like, for example, if you spend a lot of money on coffee, or perhaps you spend a lot of money on pet goats, because that seems to be a thing right now. You find that out by auditing and looking at your past spending. I know in my career field, snacks are a big thing. A lot of people buy snacks, and even being deployed, a lot of people online shop. I'm even guilty of this. I online shop quite a bit, at least more than I should. But once you audit yourself, you can see, like, okay, this is the mistake I'm making, this is a mistake I'm making, this is a mistake I'm making. But you also know what's realistic to figure out what you're spending. If you spend $100 a month on gas for the last 2 years, it's unrealistic to think that you can spend $20 next month on gas, or even $50 next month on gas. Once you know what you're spending, you can figure out what you can do with the next step. Which brings us to our next step, step 3, a budget. Now, I've made videos about budgeting before, so I'm just going to touch on this. But budget, budget, budget. Please budget. If this is the only step you take in this, please do it. Everybody, I think every adult should have a written budget. Even if you don't stay exactly true to it, you you really need to write down what you want to do and how you're going to get there, and figure out how much money you should be spending on separate things. One thing that goes into that is you also need to have self-discipline in order to keep to the budget, and to also update the budget as you go. I know every month I go through my budget and I update things that haven't been updated in a while, or maybe I'm spending less in one category, more in another category. My goal is 1 month to be exactly on budget. I haven't reached it yet, but that is my goal. I really want to be able to predict 30 days in advance every cent I'll spend that month. Haven't done it yet. That's a goal. But seriously, step number 3 is just make a budget. Figure out what you need to spend money on, and figure out where you can cut back on in order for you to achieve the goals that you listed in step number 1. Okay, step number 4. This might seem out of place with the rest, but I feel like it's very important and it's something that people need to pay attention to. Step number 4 is pay off bad debt. Bad debt, to me, is defined as any debt with an interest rate of 5% or more. So I have 2 mortgages out, but both of them are under 3.5% APR. So I don't really consider them bad debt. They're, let's say, neutral debt, because I would never say any debt is good, but they're neutral. But bad debt is credit cards, and even in some cases student loans, some cars, stuff like that. It's anything where you putting money into that not only is costing you the value of whatever you're buying, but it's also costing you what you would make up if you were to invest money. For instance, if you have a credit card that's 15% interest, it makes more sense to pay that off first, because you're not going to get 15% interest on most investments, or at least not what I consider safe or reliable investments. I know somebody's going to point out that Dogecoin, which I'm an owner of, shot up a couple months back. And you'd be right, that did happen. But I don't think we can reliably trust that as a investment source. So pay off all your bad debt. I'm not saying do that in lieu of saving for retirement, but depending on your financial situation, you might want to think about not saving for retirement as much in order to pay off the debt. If you're close to retirement age, you might not have a choice. You might need to save for retirement, but definitely want to get the credit card debt paid off, along with any high interest student loans, or if nothing else, see if you can reduce the interest rates on those items. All right, and step number 5, and this is personally what I had the biggest problem with. It's actually having the financial discipline to track what you're spending. So you make a budget and you say, okay, I'm going to spend $400 a month on groceries. But if you're not tracking it, you have no idea what you just spent. At the end of every month, you should have a report for everything you spent in the previous month, which is the end of a tracking thing, which then helps you create the budget for the next month. And that's really the best system I can think of doing it. People don't do it for a couple reasons. One, if people go over budget, I think that there's a certain degree of people don't really want to see it. They don't want it brought to their attention. They just kind of want to pretend it doesn't happen. But the thing is, it did happen. Whether you want to look at your finances or not, the financial situation remains the same. In fact, if you look at it consistently, you'll probably end up doing better in the long run with sticking to it, because you hold yourself accountable. I couldn't even tell you how many people I know who won't check their bank account because they're worried that there's no money in there. And it's like, okay, but not checking it doesn't change that there's no money in there, you know? So have the financial discipline to keep up on your budget and to track your spending. Like I said, it makes no difference if you set aside $100 a month to go out to the bar, but then you end up spending $1,000 a month on it. You need to track to know what you're doing. And this particular interest, I would say tracking is even more important, because even if you're not completely sticking to a budget, it's still best to track what you're doing, because maybe you're only going over 1 or 2 items on your budget, which means you could fix it just by planning to spend more next month. But the only way you can do that is if you have your data from the end of the month. On the bright side, tracking is a lot easier than it's ever been for any generation ever. Every single bank, just about, has a sort of application or a system for you to track your spending. In addition, there are free websites. Like I use Mint. I'm not saying it's the best out there. It's the one that I've been using the longest, and I'm the most used to, and I'm the most comfortable with. I'm sure other people have different systems, but I know USA and Wells Fargo both have spending tracking. Like, we'll call it like an application. It's like a section of their website where they help you track what you're spending. So it's easy to do. You just have to be willing to do it. Anyway, guys, I hope these tips help. They're just my personal opinion. Um, I'm sure everybody has their own different method, and by all means, if you like parts of my system but not other parts of my system, then do whatever works for you, because that's what all this is about. It's developing a system that you like, that you will use effectively. That's all, that's what it's about. So take the information, blend it with other information, or blend it with your own personal style, and just start moving in the right direction, because that's what the community I'm trying to do right here is all about. It's helping each other move our finances into the correct direction. Anyway, guys, that's it for today. If you like the video, give me a like or a share or subscribe. I hope the person who wrote me the message sees this video, and I hope it helps them, because I did put a lot of research into coming up with these, I know, very simple 5 steps, but I really want to prioritize what I felt like were the most important lessons to learn when you're at like the 0 level, when you're at the very bottom and you're trying to work your way up. So I hope you like it. I hope everybody learned something today. Thanks for watching. Be safe and keep saving.